First topic of the show, the Broncos fired Nathaniel Hackett.
Yes, we did.
Fourth NFL coach to be fired without lasting one season. Urban Meyer is the recent guy to get fired. Now, 29th in DVOA is where Hackett finished. 32nd in points, 20th in passing yards, 23rd in rushing yards. What broke the straw on the camel's back was you lost to the Rams 51-14. It was an ass beating. It was horrible. And what I found alarming about this all was not the firing. Broncos go to Ivero, the DC, and say, hey, do you want to be our interim head coach? No, I'm good. I'm good. You can give it to Jerry Roseberg, the advisor. Now, Drew, how are you feeling about this?
So, Ivero, I'm glad you mentioned that because I was actually talking about it with Joel on the way here. That is a super, super interesting situation where this has to be his mindset. I don't want to take the head coaching job because I understand my name is in contention to become a head coach this offseason. And God forbid they take these 2-game sample size and try to use it when they're trying to evaluate me to become a head coach. And they realize, man, maybe this guy's not cut out for it because there's a chance we lose these next 2 games. I understand that. If he were to become our next head coach, though, I would not be upset because he's definitely going to seek attention. You wanted me to list, I'm going to list 5 guys of who I want to become the next Broncos head coach. Avero's on that list for sure. What he's done with the defense has been amazing. There was a concern that once Vic Fangio was gone, that this defense was going to struggle. Ivero came in and did an unbelievable job, exceeded all expectations for one of the best defenses in the league. He's definitely on that list for me. Now, I spoke about it on the last show that we had. Of course, I would love Sean Payton to come be my next head coach. You're going to work with Russell Wilson. Who better to do it with than Sean Payton? Sean Payton will make something out of nothing. Sean Payton is one of the best coaches that we've ever seen this game have. I would love for him to be my head coach, but I understand that is a bit unreasonable at this point, especially if Vic Fangio is going to be his defensive coordinator. I find it hard to believe that Fangio would come back and be our DC after being our head coach. So it's looking like that's a little bit unreasonable, but that is who I would like to be my head coach, number 1. Number 2, Shane Steichen, the offensive coordinator from the Eagles. This guy was he's gone. He's gone. He's going to be a head coach somewhere. He's going to be a head coach somewhere.
You need him.
I would love for him to be my head coach. Played a hand in developing Herbert. Played a hand in developing Jalen Hurts. Come to Denver, fix the mess that is Russell Wilson right now. I would love for him. I want an offensive mind. Majority of the guys that are at the top of my list are offensive minds, especially because our biggest issue is offense. We're last in points, as Joel mentioned earlier. We need to install faith and confidence in Russ once again, and we need to bring an offensive-minded head coach that knows what's going on. And this guy does have a great track record. Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, 2 premier quarterbacks right now. Russell should be in that category, has just completely been the opposite of that. Number 3, DeMeco Ryans. Now, what he's doing over there in San Fran with the best defense in the league, he comes over and becomes our head coach. Outside of Ivero, these are the only 2 guys that I would want that are defensive-minded people to become my head coach. Because we understand our defense is already dominant. You bring in DeMeco, who's going to draw attention. Ivero, who's going to have some attention on his name as well for the head coaching gig. These are the only 2 guys that are defensive-minded that I would want to be our head coach, especially for what he's done over there with the Niners. It's more than impressive. He deserves a job. And lastly, the guy I've been speaking about a bunch, who I believe is the most realistic and who I actually think will become the next head coach of the Denver Broncos, is Frank Reich. Now, Frank Reich is going to draw a bunch of attention as well because of the situation that happened with Indianapolis is super particular. Indianapolis is horrible. They're a horribly run organization. They're a horrible team as of right now. And they tried to scapegoat Frank Reich and fired him and made him the reason why they were so bad. But they realized it does not matter who's there. The team is just simply horrible. Frank Reich is going to go to another situation and have success so long as it is consistent. And Russell Wilson's under contract for a plethora of years. That is a consistent mark that he had not had in Indianapolis. He was supposed to have Andrew Luck. He didn't. Now he's going to have Russell Wilson for a good number of years. You can make that relationship work. And Frank Reich is one of the better offensive minds in this game. It is just unfortunate the hand that he was dealt over in Indianapolis. So Frank Reich is the guy who I do firmly believe will be our next head coach. But there are just others right now that I would just like over him.
I think with the Broncos, the mistake was hiring Nathaniel Hackett in the first place.
We thought we were going to get Rodgers, man.
The Broncos hired Hackett because it was a move to lure Aaron Rodgers in. he was not qualified to be a head coach. He was not. It's as simple as that. And people will ask the question, is it the coaching? Is it Russ? Is it the offensive line? It's everything. The coaching was bad. Russell Wilson has also been bad this season. The Broncos have dealt with a lot of injuries this season. Russell Wilson just threw the same amount of touchdowns that he has in his mansion. 12 touchdowns, 12 bathrooms.
Yo.
Russell Wilson,
It's lit.
Russell
He finally
Wilson,
got there.
I'm happy for him.
Will he exceed it?
Russ did not fit in Hackett's system. It's a shotgun-heavy, quick passing game offense. That's not what Russell Wilson does. Russell Wilson's at his best when he's taking deep shots. He's rolling out on play action. That's when he's at his best. So has Russell Wilson been bad this year? Yes. But will a change of a system change how Russell Wilson will perform in next year possibly? I think he'll perform much better. But then the question now becomes, we pay $235 million to a quarterback that cannot adapt to a system. And that's the biggest problem with the Broncos, is that Russell Wilson has never shown the ability to adapt to a system. It's always had to be his way. Shane Waldron this year with Geno, you see the offense has opened up with Geno. Russ didn't want any of that. Yes.
Has it?
Geno Smith's comeback player of the year.
It's coming back down to earth.
It's coming back. But he had a better stretch than Russell Wilson.
Oh, he had an Eon
It's
better
not
season.
even close.
But I just want to make sure that
clears
we're
Russell
aware
at
of
the
that.
moment.
Yes,
We're aware
yes.
of that.
He's come back down to earth slightly. He's still been playing very well.
Solid ball.
The thing with the
Pro
Broncos,
bowler.
though, is that the offensive line will get healthy. Javonte Williams will be healthy. So if a coach can come in this system and can run the ball, play action-heavy offense, Russ can have success. And if the defense is as good as it is right now next season, then this should be a playoff team.
We're still a young
Russell
defense.
Wilson, listen, he's had 10 fantastic seasons. One season should not diminish how we view Russell Wilson. He hasn't been good this year. He's been dog water.
He's been one of the worst.
Yeah,
But in 10 seasons before this, he's been good to
Hall of
great
Famer.
to elite. So he gets a pass. But what he doesn't get a pass for is his inability to adjust and the Broncos' bad decision to pay him before they saw him play. That's really it. And George Pan came out and said that he believes Russ is fixable. Well, he better hope so.
It's a weird quote.
He better hope so.
Weird quote.
And this is a coach you didn't mention, Drew. Dan Quinn is going to be in this conversation. And
Unfortunately,
Dan
right.
Quinn,
He wasn't in last year.
He
right?
was.
there was a report that if Dan Quinn becomes a head coach again, the OC will be Brian Schottenheimer, who was Russ's OC in Seattle.
Jet legend.
Had success with him. Yeah, well, Mark Sanchez. Mark Sanchez got some good years with Brian Schottenheimer.
I just don't want.
So there's some good things there because of the consistency, but Russ, on his way out of Seattle, kind of did, say Brian Schottenheimer wasn't that good. You know what I'm saying? So there's a little tension there. I probably so, but listen, the Broncos, they made the first step into getting better. That's fired Nathaniel Hackett. He was never qualified. Now this next season is about seeing if Russell Wilson can get
back.
Can get to what he was before this disastrous season.
Real quick, before you guys go, is it a huge issue that the Broncos signed Russell Wilson without seeing him play?
Yeah, I was going to ask
I
that.
only asked that because how many free agents have we seen signed by other teams before we've seen them play? That's just kind of how free agency works. I understand.
Well, he's not a free agent, though.
No,
He got traded.
we got
was under
But then
contract.
they based his signing off of 10, 11
So we
great
traded for,
seasons.
at the time, an elite quarterback. What really is our concern there? It shouldn't have been. Like, the whole signing before you seen him play, that's the only
It's
thing I'm just like,
hindsight. It is hindsight.
exactly.
Listen, this will either be an example or a blueprint. Russell Wilson, he got paid before the Broncos saw him play. If this tenure is a disaster as a whole, then teams will
Never
look at
again.
that and
Facts.
not
Never
do it.
again.
The same thing's going on with Deshaun Watson in Cleveland right now. He hasn't played in a long time. I understand that. So next season is where we really evaluate him. But Deshaun Watson, if he doesn't play well next season as well, and he's not an elite quarterback, then teams are not going to go all in on quarterbacks that have not played for their franchise
Well,
yet.
the benefit of Watson is he's young. So,
I
Wilson
think
is aging
Deshaun-
and shit like that.
Sean should be fine.
He should be all right? You mentioned that you said, they're getting a new coach. Russell should get back to somewhat of a good to great form. But does this team, what's the ceiling for this team still? I still ask that question, right? Because Javonte Williams, you get him back. The offensive line gets healthy. The wide receiving core is still Cortland Sutton, it's still Jerry Jeudy, but you look at the landscape of the AFC, it's so fucking good that how can you really say this is a playoff team when there's so many good teams in the AFC? You got the Dolphins, you got the Ravens, you got 2 teams in the division with the Chargers, with the Chiefs, you got Buffalo. New England, what if they make some moves? They can get in the hunt. The Jets are coming. So it's like there's so many teams in the AFC. The Bengals, I didn't even mention them. Jesus Christ.
Half the league, half the conference.
Like, the AFC is so stacked. I don't know if Russell can just go from worst in the league to top 15, top 10 automatically like that, because that's what we're going to need him to do to really put this team on his back. But Hackett deserved to be fired. He was dog shit. You know, the Broncos was just a failure this year. Nothing wrong with it. It happens in the NFL. They just –
Nah, not like this.
Oh, yeah, this was –
all-time bad.
All time.
Everybody's at fault, from the coaching to Russell Wilson to the receivers, not to Javonte, but everybody's at fault. The whole offense, you get a blame because this was just a disaster from start to finish. But you bring in another guy that hopefully brings Russell Wilson back to reality, bring him back to that elite level play. That's a hard thing to grab, but if you can do that, you can definitely get some solid years out of this 10-year, because if you think about it, the Broncos defense is elite. It's been elite for a long time. So you always have that to worry about. PS2 is here. He is one of the best in the game, if not the best. So you have that defense to always look out for. But offensively, you have to score, especially in the AFC. You have to be able to put points on the board. And you saw this year, the Broncos couldn't score. That's why they could not win games. Defensively, they were there in damn near every single game. They just could not score.
Yeah, and it's on, Hackett. It's on Russ, but you also got to look at who made these decisions. You bring in this Walmart group who comes in, buys the Broncos billions of dollars. Everyone's very excited. George Patton has had a really good track record up to this point in terms of draft, free agency, even later round guys, undrafted guys, has had a really good history. But it starts with them because they're the ones who hired Nathaniel Hackett. They're the ones that signed off on the Russell Wilson trade, I'm sure. They're the ones who signed off on that $230 million contract. And Hackett's to blame for sure, but you also can't hire a coach who can't adjust his offense around his players. We could blame Russell Wilson and say he has to adjust over Hackett, but Hackett also has to adjust for Russell Wilson. It's very easy to say, well, they hired Hackett because they thought they were getting Aaron Rodgers or they could potentially trade for Aaron Rodgers, but if that was the only way Hackett was going to work, he should have never been the guy. There's no way you could hire a coach and say the only way we're going to succeed is if we can go and get Aaron Rodgers, because you could probably hire 40 people, and if you get Aaron Rodgers, you're at least a playoff team, right? We see now how terrible the Packers were for the first 2-3 months of the season. They're starting to get it going now and potentially go on a playoff run. That's just how special Aaron Rodgers is. But this season for the Broncos, I mean, they're the most disappointing team in the league, right? I thought they were going to compete for the division. I thought they'd be in the playoffs. There was people who thought they could be the number 1 seed, go to the Super Bowl, have a really great season, and it's been the exact opposite of it.
Look at that division, them and the Raiders.
It's really tough. The Raiders probably were 4th for a lot of people. But I didn't even watch this game against the Rams, honestly. The Celtics were on at 5. I wasn't watching Broncos-Rams.
Nobody was.
I saw 51-14. I saw on Twitter everyone flaming Russ for all his interceptions. They had Patrick Starr commentating a pick 6. It was honestly comical, and I'm sorry, honestly, because Christmas and sports haven't been the best combination for Mr. Velez over here. But I really don't want to.
And the Lakers lost.
Yeah, exactly. Lakers lost.
Sorry, I had to just let that know.
I don't want to count on Russ just yet. I do agree that you do have this large sample size of him being a really good quarterback, but I am starting to wonder, can he get to that elite status again? Will he be able to carry an offense? Will he be able to make special plays multiple times per game? Will he be able to put down special drives throughout the season to get you wins and get you into the playoff hunt? Because if Russell Wilson just turns into a game manager, if Russell Wilson just turns into Ryan Tannehill, this is a disaster of a trade. Not only are you giving up that top 5 pick most likely this year, but you also have all of that money committed to him. So the Broncos right now, we discussed it a few weeks ago, are in one of the worst positions to be in the NFL, because it's a bad thing to not know if you have a quarterback, but typically if you don't know you have a quarterback, you probably aren't paying him yet, right? That's kind of like Daniel Jones. That's with Sam Darnold for years. You didn't know if he was the guy, but you're also not paying him all this money. The Broncos probably right now, if they get out of this contract, they would get off of it yesterday if they could. But you have, I think, over $100 million in dead cap. There's no way anyone is going to be able to come in and eat that dead cap, or they be able to want to. So I think for the Broncos in terms of head coaches, I know a lot of people, want a veteran head coach, someone who's done it before. But if you look across the league, I mean, a lot of successful guys, and just because there's a lot of first-time head coaches in the league, have the most success, right? Kyle Shanahan was first-time head coach. Sean McVay. another side of things, you do have guys like Bill Belichick, who got a second chance, Andy Reid. So when you do have that home run ability in terms of like, Andy Reid was a no-brainer. He got fired from the Eagles, but he went to the Super Bowl. We knew he was a great coach. That's how I feel about Sean Payton. He is a second-time go-around type of head coach guy, but he's a home run hire. You get Sean Payton, you go and do it. I feel the same way about Frank Reich. I think Sean Payton's going to be number one for a lot of teams, but Sean Payton is special in terms of he's going to be able to choose where he wants to go. Everyone's going to want him. He's going to have to choose. I think next on the list is going to be Frank Reich. So when he's looking at these possible situations, he's going to have a plethora of options. And right now, this Broncos team is just not the most ideal situation if you are a head coach to go into. You have a lot of fix. You have a quarterback on a terrible contract. So I guess it's only up from here for the Broncos. You can't have much worse of a season. You guys have 4 wins, I want to say, 4-11. But, you know, you could hope and pray. You could pray Russell Wilson gets into a game manager role and Javonte comes back healthy.
At least, you know, your prediction wasn't right, but the inverse of it was.
Would you had him 11-4?
13-4, I think, right? Yeah.
Damn, really? Question.
It might go 4-13.
Yeah. Because you mentioned Ryan Tannehill, and it brought up this question in my mind. If Russell Wilson, indeed, it comes back and he is just a game manager, when do you decide, as for Denver, when do you decide to start thinking about, all right, he may be a game manager, but we drafted Jerry Jeudy, we have Cortland Sutton, we have Javonte Williams, all young talent, all young talent. When do they decide? When do we decide? All right, even though he's a game manager, we still have the guys on the field offensively too. Because you mentioned Ryan Tannehill, he has Derrick Henry. You know, Mahomes is Mahomes. Allen is Allen, but he has Diggs to save him. Tua, he has Waddle, he has Tyreek Hill. Even Dak to a degree, CeeDee Lamb has stepped up his game. So when do you decide, all right, Javonte Williams, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, when are they going to really enter that next level type game if Russell comes back and be a game manager?
Cortland Sutton is who he is. Jerry Jeudy is who he is.
Throw some respect on Jerry.
He's good.
He's the X now, and he's been a stud.
He's not elite. He's good. He's not elite.
Can he be a low tier one?
No, he's a wide receiver number 2.
So they have two number 2s.
I don't know if he'll ever be like a CD. You know, that's kind of
the thing that does give me some optimism is now that we're starting to treat him as the best receiver on the team, which he is. Now we're starting to see him get unleashed a little bit, which I'm fine with.
I want to play devil's advocate because, yes, you know, everything hasn't been Russell Wilson's fault. The coach needs to blame all this other stuff. Russ has been bad though. What does Russell Wilson at his best look like in a loaded AFC? Josh Allen is better than him.
Clears.
Mahomes is better than him.
Clears.
Herbert is better than him.
Clears.
Even if Russell Wilson gets back to being at his best, these guys will be better. Yep. Joe Burrow's better than him. Lamar Jackson's better than him.
Clears.
That's 5 quarterbacks. Deshaun Watson, he gets back to himself.
If they both get back to
he's better than him.
They both suck though right now.
Trevor Lawrence, he's better than him. That's 7 quarterbacks
facts.
right there in the AFC that are better than Russell Wilson. Even if you're optimistic that Russ gets back to his best self.
Like, all right, that's where you're losing.
But his best self is in that conversation, the top 7-8 quarterback.
His best self is not these
Stop
guys.
it.
Just a couple years ago, we were all he's a top 7-8 quarterback.
You're telling me that Russell Wilson gets back to prime peak.
We're 2 years away from a 40 touchdown season.
He lost the MVP to Lamar Jackson.
We're just 2 seasons away from a 40 touchdown season.
Wait. If Russell gets back to his level, which is elite, he's still not on Allen, Herbert, Burrow, or Mahomes level.
Correct.
Not there.
Correct.
He can be in the Deshaun, maybe Lamar. If you really want to think about it.
No, Lamar.
No, but if Russ is at that level, they could be beaten on any given week if you could compete with them.
Look at Stafford last year
with the team.
Yeah, with how good their defense is.
True.
Stafford last year, he's not Mahomes. He's not Allen.
He also had a bomb squad.
He's not Herbert. He's not Burrow. He did have a very good team, but he was amazing.
That team was loaded though.
The NFC compared to the AFC.
They had the best. They had the best wide receiver. They had the best corner.
He played the Niners. Those were 2 very tough teams to beat.
Niners had Jimmy Garoppolo.
Hey. And they still had one of the best defenses
Jimmy Garoppolo
in the
had
league.
a stinker in that game. He didn't do anything.
Jimmy Garoppolo was bad every single game,
playoffs.
and they still won because how elite that defense was.
Yeah, but in the AFC, you're going to have to duel these great quarterbacks.
But they could, if
the
Russ is at his best, they could be in that conversation.
The Stafford point is mute because Stafford had Kupp, the best wide receiver in the league. He had Jalen Ramsey, the best corner league. He had Aaron Donald,
the best player arguably in the NFL.
Russell don't got that on O. He don't really got the best wide receiver or the best running back.
And defensively, you guys are great defensively. There's no doubt. There's going to be some regression next year. There is.
Oh, really?
Yes.
How so?
I don't know about
I thought that coming into this year. And
there will be.
I feel like they're supposed to regress and they never regress.
No, you can't have a feeling.
No, I just have a
but
feeling.
how so?
I mean, that's my feeling.
But how so?
I don't know about that one.
But why?
What are they going to regress from like 5 to 8?
Because
9?
how many times have you seen in league history that a defense that is one of the top in the league continue to be that for multiple
The
years?
Denver
to come?
Broncos.
They've been that for multiple years, Fangio or not.
Even the 49ers in 2019, their defense was elite. 2020, they fell off.
Injuries.
Happens.
It does
happens.
happen. It does.
All
And we
I'm
were
saying-
injured this year, and we were still
All I'm
dominant.
saying is that I don't know. Let's see. But all I'm saying is that Russell wasn't at his best. He's not these guys, and that's why for me it's like, even if he goes back to being if he goes back to being himself, I feel confident, right? What are the odds of that? We don't know. But if he goes to being a game manager, I mean, come on, it's done. I mean, it's
Especially
done.
if the Chargers get Sean Payton.
But
Now
the
you
thing
have
is,
Reed Mahomes, Payton, Herbert. Chalk it up.
I
Not
feel
gonna
like
lie.
he hasn't.
Sean
been-
Seven seed is going to be the fight. And
Like
Chalk it up.
this season, he hasn't tried to be a game manager. He's tried to make the throws to put us in position to win.
just throwing
They
it
just
to the
haven't
wrong
been
team.
good. Just not good throws. It's simple. Not enough plays pushing the ball down the field. He hasn't been trying to game manage. He simply just has not been good. That's the issue.
I mean, he probably would have been better if he is just game managing
Correct.
this year.
Shit, at this point, I would have loved him to be a game manager. That's just not him.
Yeah. You just got to hope Javonte comes back 100% sooner than later because he's really what can open up this offense, I think. If Javonte is able to come back from his injury and be able to be a workhorse running back, we see how special he is with the ball in his hands. If he's able to be the focal point of this offense and you have success running the ball, the offensive line stays healthy, and Russ can feed off that, which was a lot of his success early in his career, on top of obviously one of the best defenses of our lifetime, then I think the Broncos have have a chance in the AFC West and the AFC. But if Sean Payton, I know the Chargers, we're going to talk about them later, they're going to go to the playoffs. If they do get bounced in round one and you have all of these rumors around Sean Payton, Brandon Staley, shout out to you. The defense has improved this year, not dramatically, but it has improved. But you fire him and you sign Sean Payton. You don't think twice about it. So if you do have Reed Mahomes, Payton, and Justin Herbert, no matter how great of a game manager, we're talking about game manager Javonte is, that's two of the best quarterback head coaching duos in the entire NFL you're going to have to deal with every season.
The biggest story in this game was Hackett being fired, the Broncos being dog shit. But the Rams, this game had a